Eddie Osterland, America's first Master Sommelier, is an internationally acclaimed expert in the culinary arena of food and wine. While completing his degree in professional tasting at the University of Bordeaux in Bordeaux, France, Eddie passed the grueling Master Sommelier Diploma in London in 1973. Today, Eddie speaks at corporate events around the country, showing audiences how to create memorable client dinners and experiences. He's the author of the book, Power Entertaining: Secrets to Building Lasting Relationships, Hosting Unforgettable Events, and Closing Big Deals from America's First Master Sommelier. Thanks so much for being on the show, Eddie.
Hey, glad to join you, Brian.
Becoming a master sommelier is a big deal. I don't know the exact number, but I think there are only about 270 people in the world who have ever earned the Master Sommelier diploma, and maybe half of those American. And you were the first American to do so. I know it's been a while, but give us a sense of what it was like to prepare for and pass the exam, and tell us what it means to hold the distinction of America's first Master Sommelier. That's so cool.
It is because it's always fun to be first at something. Nobody ever climbed the mountain before me, and I was living in Hawaii, going to graduate school, and I got involved in a wine business, and it was kind of interesting. I'll tell you how it happened. I was working as back then they called him a wine steward, somebody who served wine in a restaurant. I was 23 years old. And one night I heard that a guy who owned a chateau in Bordeaux, Henry Vandervoort, who owned Chateau Belgrave, was coming to Honolulu with his family on vacation. And I thought, I'd like to meet this guy. So he had this wine called Chateau Belgrave. And I was working in a restaurant called the Trattoria. It was a trattoria. We had Italian wine. That's it. So I put his bottle of wine on the first page of the wine list. And every time someone walked in the door at after 6 p.m. when they opened up, I tried to sell them a bottle of Chateau Belgrave. And they were asking, I would say, have you ever tried Chateau Belgrave? Well, we were looking for something like Chianti. And I said, oh, no, you really want to try this Belgrave. And anyway, whenever they said something, I would bring out this bottle. I would offer them a discount. I finally would bring them a glass of the wine and say, here, try this. I practically want to give it to him. Anyway, I sold 19 bottles of this guy's wine on tables, and he came in at 8:30 at night with his family. And I strategically placed every bottle so that it faced the door as he walked in. The guy walks in, and he says something like, "Mais qu'est-ce que c'est que ça?" or something, WTF will also work. And because it's like it was a Twilight Zone. Everybody's drinking his wine, and he's in an Italian restaurant, and he's got a French wine. He's going, "What happened? What? Who did this?" And some waiter said, "Oh, that guy over there." So he brought me over, and he said, "Why did you do that?" And I said, "Well, I just wanted to make an impression on you and wanted to meet you." He goes, "Well, you sure did." Anyway, long story short, he had me sit down with him. And at the end of the night, 2 hours later, we closed the restaurant. And he said, "Young man, if I were you, rather than studying behavioral psychology, I'd study wine tasting at the University of Bordeaux. The most famous teacher is a friend of mine, Dr. Émile Peynaud. And if that interests you, I'll introduce you to him. I'll put you over there and get you in the University of Bordeaux. You will, of course, have to go to another university for 1 year to learn French. But if that interests you, let me know." And I said, "Put me in, coach." All of a sudden, I'm living in France, studying French and going to the University of Bordeaux. And I graduated with a degree, a DUAD, which stands for Diplôme Universitaire d'Aptitude à la Dégustation des Vins, registers my tongue with the French government. And then I had known about this thing called the Master Sommelier exam in London. And as I said, no American had ever tried it. And I thought, let me see how good I am. So I went to London and I took the exam, and son of a gun, I passed all 3 sections on the first try. And I went, boy. So I remember in 73, I was the only Master Sommelier in the United States. That lasted about 3 years, but that was kind of a fun distinction. I worked at Hôtel de la Poste in Beaune in Burgundy, and I was a head sommelier there. I had the fun of saying, yeah, I'm the only American Master Sommelier. They didn't even know what a Master Sommelier was in France at the time.
Well, and that's a big deal, and still there aren't very many of you, so it's a big deal just to be a master sommelier,
Oh
let
yeah,
alone to have been
fantastic.
America's first. I think I read that each year an average of just 5 people globally earn the Master Sommelier diploma. And I think one year there was a high of 16, maybe 2005 or something. And there have been years when no one earns that. So it really is a big deal. I have to ask you though, even with that introduction and with the person you met and obviously made a huge impression on, referring you to Bordeaux and to the university, Bordeaux University, and eventually into the test. Only 10% of the people who take that test pass. And so, given that it's such an ambitious endeavor, what causes people to pursue that? And then the other thing that I'd really like to hear you tell us about is what does that do for someone's career and for their life to have that master sommelier distinction?
Well, there's 4 levels of the certification. We're going through to certified and advanced and then mastered. What does it give you? A feeling of enormous pride because so many people have taken it 5 or 6 or 7 times and just can't quite muster the moxie to make it work. And it's almost a game of nerves. Anybody who is allowed to take that exam has proven that they can pass the exam. They've taken tests, same exact test, but when you present on game day, your nerves start to play, and you start calling a red wine white if you look at it too often. You got to go on your first impressions, and you got to take the exam several times. I was lucky; it's like 7 people out of 175 ever passed it on the first try, so it's rare. But anyway, it's a lofty distinction, getting harder and harder to pass every year because the wine world is growing and growing and growing, and pretty soon you're going to be seeing lots of Chinese wine all over. So it's in a constant state of flux. But it's a club that to me it's the coolest club in the world. And once every 2 years we meet and kind of look around the room and go, wow, all of us passed that monstrous exam, and we all wear the same gold pin, and we're all equal. We come in different flavors, but it's a real fun club to be in.
Wow, and it's a very impressive accomplishment, obviously. Now, there are other exams like maybe the bar exam or the medical exam, the CPA exam. I don't know how to make the comparison, but for our listeners and viewers, there's a documentary and it's called Som, right, Eddie?
Yeah. Hmm.
And that gives you some sense, and maybe you can share a little bit about that and tell us how whether that's what it was like or whether it's off a little bit. But
Exactly what it was like. Yeah, no, it was put together a couple of years ago, and it it follows 3 or 4 guys who are on their way through the exam. And if you look at the movie Psalm, get a bottle of wine, open it up with your wife or friends, and watch it, and you'll now know what it takes to become a master sommelier. And it's a bear. I
it's
mean,
a
I wouldn't ever think of doing it now because you have to have no life, no wife, no kids, no job that takes you down. You got to be able to commit for a couple of years or more.
well, it's a harrowing experience for sure. And
Yeah.
if you watch the movie, the documentary, obviously they weren't trying to encourage people to take the exam, right? It's
I wouldn't say that. I just think that it's they may well, it's called masters for a reason. There's advanced level, which is pretty darn close to masters, but when you hit the masters, you're 10% more acutely aware of everything they're going to ask you, which is the world. I mean, it doesn't sound right that they fire questions at you. I mean, you can't even hesitate. You got to know that stuff so cold that you just spit out the answer. If you have to hesitate and think about it, bye bye.
Eddie, you grew up in New Jersey, and I was reading a little bit about your upbringing, and I know your parents loved to entertain. It seemed
Wow.
like they did it fairly often, and they were very good at it. Let's go all the way back to your childhood, because got the sense that that influenced you and influenced you to become the person that you are today. What lessons did you learn from your parents about how to throw good parties and about extending hospitality to guests?
Well, my mother was a professional singer in New York City, and my father was a singer as well. And they just like to throw parties. I grew up in a town called Mountain Lakes, New Jersey, which, if anybody's from New Jersey has ever been there, it's like a little town of about 5,000 people. And back in the 50s and 60s, I mean, there was a party every weekend at somebody's house. And I just saw my parents do that. And I thought, well, that's what people do. You grow up and you throw parties. And so that's what they influenced me. And and then bit by bit. Hold on one sec. I got to make sure my computer's plugged in here again. There it is. Okay. Um, anyway, so my parents influenced me a lot, and then and then I got out to Hawaii and I got in the restaurant business, and it became part in my blood. The idea is, in my book, I tell people think like a som. Now, a sommelier is not just some guy who pulls corks and sells bottles of wine in a restaurant. He or she, asks you a couple of questions to find out where your likes are, dislikes, what your experience is, and then says, okay, fasten your seatbelts, Brian. I'm going to take you on a little culinary excursion, and I'm going to pop you with things that you probably never had before, both in the neighborhood of food and wine. And we're going to learn how to taste them together, meaning most people treat wine as a beverage, and it is a beverage. And so they eat their steak, chew, 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 swallow it, then have a sip of wine to wash it down. What I try to teach them is you need to combine the food and the wine together in the mouth at the same time. I utilize the equation 1 + 1 = 3, synergy, where each, the food and wine, should amplify each other's assets. So just like ketchup and a French fry, you wouldn't eat a French fry and have a spoon of ketchup after that. That'd be dumb. That'd be dumb. Well, you shouldn't have your salmon and and have your glass of wine and throw it down after you finish the salmon. You need to get them together in the mouth. And when people start to see that each of them amplifies each other, it changes the way everybody thinks about the food and wine experience. It's no longer just a beverage; it's a condiment. The wine can change the way your food tastes if you select the right one, the right styles, or the ones with big alcohol, or ones with big acidity. They change the way the flavors of the food taste. And once people have seen that, light bulbs go off. They go, "Wow, I never thought of it that way. Never thought about putting a liquid in my mouth while I'm chewing a steak." Yeah, try it.
Yeah. No, that's a fascinating concept, and I love how you dumbed it down for people like me and in using the French fry ketchup analogy,
Yeah,
because we can. But seriously, we can really understand that, can't we? I
okay.
might not understand mixing salmon with wine or mixing food with liquid, but I certainly understand the French fry ketchup
Yeah, that's an
analogy.
easy one to get people to understand or start to approach to understand. And I mean, when you choose a wine to go with your food, I mean, you squeeze a, a slice of lemon on your salmon. Sure, we do. Why? You don't even give it any thought. You just they taste better together. Well, when you choose a wine to go with your salmon or your tuna or whatever, the wine, white wine in one case, let's say, needs to be a stunt double for that lemon, meaning it needs to have the requisite acidity, needs to be tart, needs to be sharp. And those wines are not always friendly by the glass. They
Mm.
need food. They're screaming out, "Hey, give me some food. I want to, I want to temper my edge." The wine is like a knife's edge. It's sharp, and if you put it in your mouth on its own, a white wine with a lot of acidity on its own, people might grimace, saying, "Ah, I don't like that. It's a little too sharp." And they go, "Well, now put some food in your mouth with the wine, and each of them softens each other's edges, and then you're off and running." I mean, once you do that for someone, they go, "I never thought about that before," and
That's a game changer.
it's a game changer. It really is. Everything going
Eddie,
to cost you twice as much money for the rest of your life.
yeah, right. Eddie, you wrote that it's your passion and your mission in life to educate people about fine wine and food. And as you said, how to put them together in enjoyable combinations. When did it first become clear to you that this was your life's calling? Because clearly it's a gift that you've been blessed with.
Well, I noticed I moved from Honolulu to New York City because I kind of saturated the market in Honolulu. I had a wine school there with 5,000 people took it, and I saturated the market. So I moved to New York, and I noticed I moved to the International Wine Center, and I offered the same courses I was giving in Honolulu. But I noticed that the people taking my courses were all execs and businessmen and women who could see that if they knew something more about wine and food than their peers or their competitors or whatever, it gave them an edge. I mean, it was a tool, it was power entertaining it's a new operating system. It's another way within which to work. And most people who have never, you don't get that kind of training in college. They don't offer it. So unless they've worked in a serious restaurant and they get a hint of it, they flocked to my courses and I saw them just staring at me like, what? You're talking about, serving people the best thing they're gonna have all night long in the first 15 minutes. Why? Well, that's when people are hungry. People, you guys and me, we don't like being hungry. So what happens when we come into your house? You've gone out and put out a bunch of hors d'oeuvres or a spread, whether it's dips, chips, nuts, guacamole, whatever that the average folk put out. Your friends come over, they look down, they're starving, so they go down and start wolfing on the hors d'oeuvres. And they're going to dine on your hors d'oeuvres. In 20 minutes, they're going to take their appetite, which starts at a 10 out of 10, and drop it to a 4, eating salted nuts and salami and hunks of cheese. And maybe that's so underwhelming. Why would you do that to anybody? So the idea is you need to serve them the best thing they're going to have all night long. In the first 15 minutes, I call it the magic window, and you take no prisoner. You get them. They put it in their mouth. I go, wow. I mean, I'll give you an example. I had somebody over about a year ago, and they came in and they were in front of the bar, and they were wolfing down these these little nuggets or something. And someone said, "Hey, Eddie, what are these things?" And I said, "Oh, those are perthebes. It's a mollusk from Portugal." And they went, "Wow, that's great. Where did you get them?" I go, "Portugal." You connect the dots. Yeah, I had to FedEx them in 2 days ago to get them here, so you'd have something in front of you that you'd never had before. And I did that. Why? Because I want to know you. I want to meet you. I want to do business with you. I want you to be my girlfriend. Whatever. But food and wine are the international currency for connection. And so if you learn how to serve people, not a lot, you don't need to become a chef or anything. I show people, I'm working on a video course right now that's almost done. And if people learn how to serve certain things that go well together, like champagne and Parmesan cones. I mean, these things are freaking magnetic. And you only need to learn how to make a couple of them to drop the hook. And once people do that, they say, "Give me some more. Give me some more tips. What other wines do you want to drink?" Well, ABC, anything but Chardonnay, anything but Cabernet. That's what everybody else serves. Don't be like everybody else. Be outrageous. It's the only place where it's not crowded.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So, for novice wine connoisseurs, I think one of there are a couple traps that are easy to fall into. The first one is thinking that the most expensive wine is the best wine, and that you have to spend a lot of money in order to enjoy a good bottle of wine. And then I think the second thing, and I've done this before, true confession, and I've given this advice before. It's a little embarrassing. I shouldn't even say this to any master sommelier, let alone America's first master sommelier. But this notion of once you've found a decent bottle of wine, serving that to everybody you have all the time. And the trap that I fell into, what I thought, and I mean, just talking with you for a couple minutes, I know how crazy it seems, but I always thought, why not find a bottle of wine that everybody would enjoy, and it's sort of middle of the road. You're not being outrageous. You're serving something that you think everybody will enjoy. People who drink a lot of wine, people who don't drink a lot of wine. Tell us why. You've already talked a little bit about that, but tell us why we shouldn't think like that and what we should do instead.
Well, I think the most important thing is that because everybody serves Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Cabernet and Merlot, you should go deep, go different, you know. And so the idea is to give something, put something in front of someone that they probably never had before, something that's affordable for them, that they can, you know, they can go out and buy it themselves and repeat it. You, whenever you're entertaining, what I always do is I serve two wines at a time, not one, because you can't learn much from tasting just one wine. I mean, it's a wine, you know, it's better than no wine. But if you put two wines out there, let's say you take an Oregon Pinot Noir and you compare it to a California Pinot Noir, and you put them out in front of your friends and go, okay, which one do you think's from Oregon? And they're going to give you the old, I don't know. And so you teach them. Oregon is a lot northerly, more northerly than California. It's colder up there. So the grapes don't get as ripe, and they're high in acid, and they're a little lower in alcohol because they're not as ripe. California is hotter than hell, and the grapes get real ripe and jammy. And you know, you tell them that, and they pick up the two glasses, they taste them, they go, well, this one here must be the Oregon Pinot Noir. And you go, yeah. And then they pat themselves on the back. Wow, I just did that. You know, you taught them how to do that. And I guarantee you within 60 days, they're going to have some people over to their house. They're going to serve an Oregon Pinot Noir versus California Pinot Noir because you showed them how to do it. That, my friend, is power entertaining, because you have takeaway value to your rents. You're not bringing over just to take them up to altitude and send them home in a cab. You know, you want to teach them something so there's takeaway knowledge, and so they've got new skills, new entertaining skills, and it's intellectual. I mean, the two wines side by side, there's a question: which one do you like better? Here's two Cabernets. One's 24, one's 34. Which one do you think is $10 more? And generally speaking, you kind of get what you pay for. So I have a fun thing in my book. You can see it if you open it up. It's called the three B's, B apostrophe S of wine. And there's a pyramid in my book. And on the bottom 2/3 of one pyramid is called beverage for B. Beverage wine is $5 to $7 wines that you can give out to everybody a bottle each, and you're not out of pocket very much. And they don't really care. They just want to pound a bottle of wine. We have 60% of my friends are that in that league. Then you go up to the next level, beverage better. Better wines are like, to me, retail about $35 a bottle. Significantly more expensive. But when you put your nose in the glass, you know it's there. You know it's Pinot Noir, or you know it's Syrah, because there's these certain smells that only come from a wine that starts costing $30 to $35 a bottle. And those are for your very good friends. And then at the very top of the pyramid is best. So you get beverage, better, and best. Best wines start at $75 a bottle and go up pretty quickly. And those are for your very best friends who've demonstrated to you that they recognize excellence and are willing to pay $75 because they know that no other wines on the planet can taste like that. So this pyramid, or beverage, better, and best, is a means within which you can filter your friends, because there's some that go in beverage quality, some that go into beverage, and occasionally you got a handful of friends on your hand that you invite over, and you taste wine. Then the wine is so important. I choose food to play a subordinate role to the wine, so the food doesn't threaten it. So I cook a chicken. Chicken's like a Q-tip with some attitude. It's not going to threaten any wine. So the wine is being teed up on a pedestal, and the food plays a subordinate role, so the wine stands out. That's what I bring people over at noontime on Sunday, tell them they can only eat an apple before they come over, and then I whack them with something really good, because that's when food tastes best, at noontime. All the wine tastings I did in France were done at noontime, and they were over at 12:30, because you only got about a 30-minute window when people give a you-know-what about food and wine, and then they're into kind of drinking it and getting up to altitude, having fun, partying, woohoo, And so that small window is when you got to bring them over and say, hey, you better come over here hungry. I call it starve them and stab them. Bring them in hungry and then launch. In the 15 minutes, if you go to a potluck party, bring the best course you could possibly bring first, because I don't care if you burn it, they're going to love it. They're starving. You know,
So in your book, Power Entertaining, Eddie, you share 20 secrets of successful power entertaining, and you've probably shared, I don't know, maybe half a dozen of them, but share more if you would about the food. So we sort of got the wine covered, and we know that for our acquaintances, we use the bottom of the pyramid, and for our pretty good friends, we use the middle of the road. And if we're really trying to schmooze somebody, and you use personal schmoozing or maybe business entertaining, then we use the higher dollar wine. Tell us about the food equivalent of that. And you
well, I
just
mean,
mentioned
sure. I mean,
three.
I'll just say this: is that people don't like being hungry, so they kind of want to end it as fast as they can. Um, so, what I find that too many people do, spoiled by restaurants that do it, is they serve too much food, too big a portions of food. Your degree of success when you're entertaining any guests you're having over is directly in proportion with their amount of hunger or appetite. You run out of if they run out of appetite, it's like running out of altitude if you're a pilot, which I was for 35 years. You're out of luck. Game over. So you need to serve small little morsels of things that are bite sized. You know, I mean, one spoon of something and one sip of wine is enough. You don't need a big, 6-ounce glass of wine. I mean, when my wife and I used to go to restaurants, we would always order a wine by the glass, and we'd say, bring another empty glass, and we'd pour it in half. We'd split it. We don't need 6 ounces. Likewise, you don't need, who in the world in the heck needs a 16 or a 24-ounce piece of steak? I mean, as good as it tastes, that's 50 bites. You don't need 50 bites. You need 3 or 4 bites. Then move on to something else, like the tasting portions, and a small glass of wine. So you can have 8 or 9 tastes of wine and 8 or 9 little skewered things that it tastes fun. That's more fun. Who doesn't like sitting down to a ribeye and a baked potato? I do, but it's pretty redundant. It's more and more of the same until you run out of appetite, and then you're done.
So why do restaurants do that? You've worked in a number of very fine
People
restaurants,
expect
and say that again.
people expect it. People measure a successful restaurant with how big the doggy bag you take home is. We got a 2-for-1 portion here, but I mean,
Or how the bread is, right?
oh
So
yeah,
that's the first criteria. The first thing that people get served is bread, and we judge whether the bread is good or not, and then we judge the restaurant based on how
you know,
warm the bread was or
you
what
know what
kind
I
of
say
bread.
in my book, and what I do. I mean, I do dinners for a living. I do corporate dinners where I have to beat whatever they did last year to entertain and find client appreciation events or client attraction events. First thing I say to them, don't bring any bread out. Why? Because people will eat half of their appetite in bread because bread is good, but bread is bread. I'm sorry. So I just say, bring the bread,
Even French bread, right?
but bring the bread when the entree comes. Don't put it out first because people will murder. As I said, people are going to dine on whatever's in front of them. Whether it's dips, chips, nuts, guacamole, or whatever. They're going to do that, and they're going to ruin their appetite. Your mother said, "Don't do that, Brian. You ruin your appetite." It's the same damn thing. You can't. You can't. People are no different. They cannot stand being hungry, so they're going to wolf down whatever's in front of them. And so you got to carefully know what you're going to load upon these people. You got to tell them, please come over hungry. And you tell them I'm going to treat you to some fun things that perhaps you've never had before, and the whole idea. And then you got to write it all up so that when they leave, they know where they can buy this stuff, where they got this cheese, where they got these,
Mm.
Perthebes from Portugal or Jamon Iberico from Spain or Italy. The ham is fed those, black knuckled pigs that very expensive, but sometimes you have to buy something. You have to spend a little money to get people's attention, and with food you can do it.
You mentioned earlier the wine tasting at noon in France. Should we consider maybe luncheons on a weekend versus an evening dinner for that reason?
Are you kidding me? I am absolutely doing it. All the people. I mean, I've had like 15,000 students in my life, and many of them to this day say to me, Eddie, when you told us that food tastes best at noon or 1 o'clock. Um, some of my friends have a phrase they call it "living at 11:30" because they bring their friends over. Everybody brings $100 bottle of wine, and we taste the wines first. We don't taste the food and then the wine. No, no, no. We taste all 10 wines first when we're starving, and we experience them at the same time. Because if you experience wine and food, then a little more wine and food later, a little more wine and food later, by the time you're getting down here, you're running out of appetite. You're not tasting the same way. So you want to taste them real quickly, analyze the wines on their own as to which vintages you like better, etc. Then bring on the food, then taste the wine with the food. So people who really follow what I like to say, I go, everybody else entertains on Friday night and Saturday night. How about you entertain on Saturday or Sunday and bring people over by 12:30, serve them some champagne, and then serve the really good stuff at 12 to 4. That way you're not ruining everybody's day. They can take an Uber home or whatever, but they're not killing the night. And people tend to at the end of the week on a Friday night, and they might drink more than they should or whatever, just because they're the week is over. But you bring people over at 1 o'clock on a Saturday or a Sunday, they're a little more respectful, and it's fun. Get people to dress up a little bit, and have people, maybe have, and try to bring something that's. I mean, people sometimes like bring your favorite bottle of wine. No, you need to create a theme, like call it a night in Italy or an afternoon, so that everybody is bringing Italian wine. Or you can go out and get the 10 Italian wines you think everybody should be aware of. You buy them because you know what goes together with what, and then everybody chips in 10%, so that they pay for it. But it's not like they're bringing whatever they went to a store and picked up. No, you got to think it out. You got to have the wines have to have a theme, so that they're going to go together. Certain vintages need to be tasted side by side, so you can see the difference with one year over another. People love to see that these are two of the same wines, but one's from a better year, and wow, it's got a longer aftertaste. That's because it's a better vintage.
So it sounds like you really need to be intentional about it, and also go the extra mile to make these things happen. It's not, the things that you're describing aren't difficult to do, but most people don't do those things. Is it
They don't
because
take the
it's
time.
work, or they don't have the time?
They don't
They don't take the time.
rush out to Costco and get a pre-made plate of salami and cheese and whatever, and bring it home, and then an hour later there's a party. It's convenient, but it's boring and it's expected. So you want to have people come over to your house and go, I wonder what they're going to do this time, because Eddie never disappoints. We always walk away with some new tips or new flavors. Or what's this wine? Oh, it's called Godeo, Godello, from Spain. Kind of like Chardonnay. Most people never heard of Godeo. You know, it's $25 a bottle, and people need to know about these things. So I love to bring these things up. So here, in fact, if I really want to play them, I send them home with a bottle of what I served them, so that they can repeat it themselves. There's the takeaway value. Again, we're not having people over and let's have a refueling. Here's all the wine and food you can drink and eat. No, let me show you what you can take to your friends and go, what do you think of this Louis Martini Cabernet from Sonoma versus Louis Martini Cabernet from Napa? The labels look the same, but one of them's $40 and one's 20. Which one do you think's 40? And then you tell them how to judge a wine and know that the longer the aftertaste, the better and more expensive the wine is. And that's generally a Napa wine over a Sonoma wine. But so that's where people really look forward to coming over and saying, what's he going to do now?
So we've talked a lot about creating memorable experiences in the home, power entertaining in the home. Let's switch now and talk about business entertaining or power entertaining in a restaurant. So if
Oh, do I
I
love
really want to make a favorable impression, either with an existing client or a prospective client, what can I do to be outrageous, to use your term? What can I do
here's
to be
exactly what
different?
you can do. Don't assume that if you've got a reservation on Friday night at a famous restaurant that you've got it made, because who knows, 30, 40 other people have that same 8 o'clock reservation. And when everybody comes in that restaurant at 8 o'clock, every waiter is in what they call in the weeds. They're trying to survive because everybody's going, gimme, 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 gimme. So the idea is how to be different and how to be outrageous. First of all, you need to, what I use the phrase in one of my chapters in my books, bond with the som. You need to call the sommelier, he or she, up maybe 3 weeks before you're planning on having your party, is 6 or 12, whatever. First thing he says, I'd like to meet with you a couple of weeks before and discuss a very important event that means a lot to me. And I love your restaurant. And I know you have a private dining room, and I want to use that private dining room. Because if you're out there with, we used to call them the cattle, the 200 people in the main dining room, all going, gimme, 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 it's too loud. It's too loud to concentrate on wine. I can't believe how so many people would spend a lot of money on a wine and then go out into the cattle pen. And you've been at a table before when you're looking across the table talking to somebody at a table of 8, and you can't really hear what they're saying, but you're doing this, you know, yeah, I agree. Oh, yeah, you're right. You know, you can't hear what the hell they're saying. You know, that's too loud to try to enjoy the aromatics of a fine Bordeaux wine. You just can't get that. And guess what? The wine's marked up 300%. So it's 3 times more expensive. You can't get that. And guess what? It's served at room temperature. Serving people red wine at room temperature is a freaking insult, because the wine, the alcohol in the wine and the aftertaste is caustic. It burns like vodka or tequila. But if you drop the temperature of that wine by 10 degrees, if it's in a wine cellar, it's at that temperature, 56, 58 degrees, whatever. Or you have to put it in an ice bucket for 5 or 10 minutes to chill it off. But the idea is you don't want to be out there with the cattle. You want to be in a private dining room. So what I do is bond with his son. It's real simple. I tell people, I wish I could send you a chapter in my new video course, because I have a whole video I took in a restaurant where the people come in the restaurant 8 o'clock Friday night and they go, hey, Osterland reservation for 8. Oh, and of course the gal at the hostess desk says, oh, Mr. Osterland, you know your table's not quite ready. Perhaps could we offer you a seat at the bar? You know, well, that's normal restaurant protocol. Let's ding you for $60 if 4 drinks is 15 before we sit you down. You know, I don't like that. I don't want that. I got an 8 o'clock reservation. I want to come and sit down. So if I've arranged this with a sommelier, I walk in, I'm ushered off to the private dining room where I'm served champagne, and I'm by myself. I'm in my own room. The menu has already been designed by me and the sommelier. He or she is going to tell me, here are the best things you could possibly have at this restaurant. Don't give anybody any menus. They don't need them. These things blow people's minds. Here's the wine we can serve with them. Here's the more fancy glassware than we use in the dining room, because we don't have a lot of expensive glassware. You do all that stuff, and all of a sudden, when the dinner is over, you sit back and they go to your friends, hey, we got to do this again. Let's go. You know, and no check came, because no check should ever come. Why? Because you've seen it. As soon as that check comes to a party, ever having a good old time like that, boom, check drops. Some people look at it like, ooh, check. And some people actually feign like they're going to grab their wallet and pitch in. But anyway, it brings the game to a close. So the idea is no check should ever arrive. You've already given the sommelier your credit card. You've already told them put 25% tip on it, not 20, 25%. That's industry standards. And so when you walk in the room, they're saluting you. Your guests feel like are you a part owner of this place? Because everything is cool and everything is seamless and portions are small and temperatures are perfect and right on, and whites are served cool and whites are served not too cold. You know, white wine out of a refrigerator with a keg of beer in it, it's too cold. It's Antarctic cryogenic temperatures where the wine has no aromatics. It smells like cold white wine. I'm a white wine. So, I mean, so that's the way you do it. You know, I tell people, when you go on a cruise ship, you ever on a Crystal Harmony cruise ship, they're big food and wine cruise. And I go, you know, at 7:30 at night, 2,500 people descend into the dining room. 50 captains have to take care of 2,500 people. That's 50 per person, and they all come in at once. So who are you going to serve first? These these guys are really good. They know how to read people, how they dress, what kind of cocktails they order, and they know how to kind of put who's on first, who's going to get the love first, and then who's going to get it last. The guy's ordering a Miller Lite or something. Anyway, so the whole idea is, I tell people, you go on a cruise ship, and you're hoping that they're going to take good care of you. Here's what you do: you go on that cruise ship, and everybody else comes in the dining room 7:30. You come in at 7:15. You find out from the maitre d' what's your table number. Oh, table 26, Mr. Osterland. You go to table 26 and you look for the captain who's in charge of the station. He's polishing with some wine glasses, waiting for the onslaught of people. And you go over there and you go, hey, Peppy, I'm Mr. Osterland. I'm on table 26. And he put $100 bill in his hand and he used the following phrase: bring it. Then the guy is at your table every night first for the rest of the cruise. Simple as that. He knows there's more to come because you're sophisticated. You know the gig. You know how it's done. There's a guy, Jason Tomsky, who wrote a book called Heads in Beds, which he kind of runs the riot act on the hotel industry and tells everybody, like Anthony Bourdain did, about restaurants. And he says, hey, you want a nice room in your hotel? He goes, here's what you do. You walk up to that little young, pretty gal who graduated from Cornell Hotel School last year, and as you're checking in, you go, hey, Susie, I'm here with my wife. Don't tell her it's your birthday. Don't tell her it's your anniversary. They hear that 10 times a day. You just say, listen, if there's any possibility of us getting an upgrade, and you put a crisp $20 bill down in front of her and you walk away, we'd really appreciate that. I guarantee you, if there's a room available, you're going to get it. And this is another guy who wrote the book it's the same thing I'm talking about cruise ships. It's called front loading. Don't guess if they're going to take good care of you, and then at the end tip them better. How do they know? Don't let them wonder. Bam. March.
So only $20 for the room.
Yeah,
$100.
I've tried it. It didn't work, but I've tried it. It's no guarantee, but just think about it. Almost every hotel has an upgradable room. Why? Because people bitch. So they need to have a couple on deck that they can feed out. I mean, every cruise ship has 2 or 3 cabins that every 13 days when the cruise starts all over again, the first night dinner, I guarantee you 2 or 3 cabin members are going to complain about their cabin. And they need to be prepared. So while these people are at their dining room table, they can send a team to the other side of the ship, find a new cabin, transfer everything right down to a lipstick, and put it in the same spot it was in the room, so that when these people get up from the table, they go, oh, by the way, your cabin has been moved to number 96 on the upper deck. And the cruise ships have to do that. So it's, just being a little savvy of hospitality is what it's all about, and trying to make people feel special. It's as simple as that. It's just, what can you do to make these people feel like, wow, you really went out of your way? Whereas most people don't go to that effort. So it's a new operating system. It doesn't take that much, but it does take extra effort. It has you thinking, what am I going to do? I'm the kind of guy who's been flying in an airplane. I might be sitting next to some woman who works for, I don't know, Estee Lauder. And, we're talking, and she's mentioned, oh, I like food and wine. I'm having dinner tonight with my best girlfriend, at this restaurant, I'll listen. And then when I get down, I'll call a hotel and find out if she's got a reservation in that restaurant. And if she does, maybe I'll send her half a bottle of bubbles and just say, yeah, my email is skysom@gmail. I'm the Sky Sommelier. I'm the Sky Som. And it might get a reaction from her, but it might even be, usually I would do it if I thought I'd like to call that person. And, this would get me a follow-up call, because you're going to get a reaction that comes back. Here's another thing I do. Let's say you want to do some business with some company, and you know who the CEO is, but there's no way he's going to pick up your phone call. There's no way you can send anything, an email. His gatekeeper's got him blocked off. No. You know what I do? I don't have one to show you right now, but I carry one with me always. I send them a can of tuna fish. And the can of tuna fish is called ventresca. And it's the belly portion of the tuna, which is the most mellow, delicious thing. Almost no one has ever had it. It's hand filleted by people in Spain and Italy. And for example, it costs $10 a can instead of two. But it's wrapped in a beautiful red thing. You can buy them on. I buy them on Amazon by the case, a case of 12, and I just put them in a FedEx envelope. And I choose whether I want to identify myself by putting my card in there or not at all. And I FedEx this thing to the CEO. It goes right by all the gatekeepers, goes delivered right to his desk. He opens it up and he's saying to himself, "Who the hell sent me a freaking can of tuna?" But I'll have one message in there. I'll go, "Don't make tuna fish out of this. Eat this on a cracker." Or I'll put my name in it, or I won't say anything for a month, and then I'll send something else like, "Hey, did you get that can of tuna?" And the guy's scratching his head, going, "You the guy sent me that tuna?" But anyway, you get by that. You get by the gatekeeper. You get to your mark, and chances are you'll at least get a phone call back from the guy going, "That's pretty cool."
Once again, it's going above and beyond, isn't it? Going the extra
Beyond
mile,
their expectations.
doing what no one else is doing so that you can get results that no one else is getting.
And how hard is that? It's not hard. But still, nobody does it unless, I would say, I'm the only one who tells them. Other master sommeliers are the same way. But I've made a living at saying to people, if you operate like this with this new power entertaining operating system, people are going to take note. And when your call comes in, or when your invitation to an event your company's doing happens, and maybe they have me speaking at the event where I'm doing stuff like that. I mean, for example, everybody goes to a networking reception, right? In business, we go to those things.
Sure.
But nobody likes to network. Nobody likes to make idle chit chat with people they don't know. So they come in with their best girlfriend. They go to wherever they're dispensing alcohol, and they camp there for 45 minutes. Then they go to dinner. Networking, might as well take the word off the program. What I do is, because people don't like moving around and they're shy, I issue them a passport. This thing looks exactly like an American passport. And inside, it's got 5 pages which represent 5 stations where I have an egregious food and wine combination, that the likes of which most people have never seen or heard before. And I strategically place these stations all over the venue. I tell them, don't get a hotel ballroom. Go to an aquarium, go to an aircraft hangar, go to some museum, go somewhere different rather than a freaking ballroom. And then position, it could even be your company headquarters, but position these stations in places you want people to go to, because they will take your passport and they'll follow each station. They'll go. You could even get the passport stamped at each station, but it forces movement. So now you've got a networking reception where people are actually networking, and they're seeing food and wine combinations they've never seen before. You might have a drawing to give away some of these food and wine combinations at the door. You might tell the people to get your passport stamped. If you get your passport stamped at all 5 stations, you go into a drawing for a free weekend at the Ritz-Carlton. Every hotel's got free rooms. Every hotel always has rooms available. So you're not asking them for anything. And, it gets people moving. And these passports, they look so real. I mean, I had them printed like a stunt double. I mean, I was in Miami with 600 people from Merrill Lynch a couple of years ago, and TSA stopped me because I had 600 passports in my suitcase, and they said, they're all wrapped up in rubber bands, and they were going to bust me. And I said, hey, take a look inside. They didn't find any humor in it at all, because they looked like passports, but inside there were menus. But on the other hand, the people who went to the event brought these passports home, and it sits on their desk, and somebody goes, "Hey, Brian, are you traveling? So you get your passport?" No, that's a food menu for an event we did, So it sits on the desk for a month or two with your logo, your phone numbers, contact them, talk about the event. That's a networking reception.
Oh, that's awesome. That's brilliant, Eddie.
It was a good idea. Really? I did one for 11 years in a row for National Australia Bank in New York City. Same event every year, because it works.
That's awesome. So you've alluded to this program that you're creating, and I know we've talked about it a little bit. It's not quite ready yet, but I will say that when it is and you're ready to start marketing it, we'll be happy to put it up on our podcast and
Really?
YouTube
That's
page.
that would be such help because I'm not sure. I'm not a marketing expert, but I got everything I've ever learned or said to anybody in this course, and it's like a 9 module course that people can take, online, and it's got quizzes and stuff. But I tell people this is not going to make you a wine expert. This is going to give you just enough information to be dangerous. Just enough information to learn that if I'm going to an Italian restaurant or a Greek restaurant or a French restaurant, um, here are the anchor wines. Here are 9 of the wines that I guarantee will be on every wine list in every city. That if you look down at your phone and you look at it like a cheat sheet, and it says, hey, if you're going to an Italian restaurant, here's 4 whites, Fiano d'Avellino, here's Puro Pan Suave. Here's 3 reds: Barbera, Barbaresco, Barolo. You can't go wrong if you choose one of these wines because I say so. So
That's awesome.
it'll be a fun thing.
Well, it'll be great. And again, we're happy to promote that when it comes out. If it's anything like this podcast and YouTube show has been, it's going to be just off the charts. And again, it's another way for people to set themselves apart, whether it's personal entertaining in your home or business entertaining in a restaurant or with prospective or current clients. Again, Eddie's book is Power Entertaining, and also look at the links on the podcast or YouTube show, however you're listening or viewing this, and eventually you'll see some information about Eddie's program, also called Power Entertaining. Right,
That's right. There it
Eddie?
is.
Thanks so
It'll be
much.
out in about a couple months. Yeah.
Thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate all your wisdom. The big surprise for me is your knowledge of food. And I think when people think about sommeliers, they think about wine, and obviously their training is in wine. But what you've shown us is that it's really in the combination. And a lot of people can pick a good bottle of wine, but that pairing that you talked about, combining it with great food, just really creates an extraordinary experience rather than a great experience, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It can be great or it can be greater. And most people entertain. Some do it better than others. That's all. And if you do it better
Well,
than others, you're gonna have people following you. People hang out with celebrities and professional athletes. Why? Because hope something rubs off. People hang out with foodies and people who know food and wine because you share stuff with them that they can do themselves and share themselves. So it's a skill that once you learn it, you will not regret learning it.
well, and you
Although
are
it's
obviously
fun.
you're obviously the master teacher, and so we appreciate your wisdom, your insight, your time today. It's been great getting to know you, and I look forward to talking again soon.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Eddie.
You're welcome.
Thanks for tuning into Life Excellence. Please support the show by subscribing, sharing it with others, posting about it on social media, and leaving a rating and review. You can also learn more about me at brianbartes.com. Until next time, dream big dreams and make each day your masterpiece.